My name is Carrie Liu. I write the Hypergrowth Leadership newsletter, and I'm here today with Nick Lafferty, who's the head of growth for Profound, one of the innovators in answer engine optimization. We'll talk about what the title of the category is, but really thinking about how we optimize for LLMs and how the changes that are happening in SEO declines and shoppers finding what they need in different LLMs affects our marketing. So Nick, so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just start with the category. What do we call it? Is it AEO? Is it GEO? Is it agent something something?
Oh gosh, we think for marketers and SEOs, you think folks will be better at naming things, but this has really been quite contentious, I would say. We've seen both Geo, AEO, we've seen a bunch of other ones. We prefer the term agent experience. It kind of all comes back to who is everyone's new customer, and it's AI. It's an AI bot who is visiting your website in lieu of a person. It really changes kind of like the fundamentals of web design and just how people and now computers interact with the web instead of a human. In that age, you would design your website for a human and make it look nice and pretty and have good clickable elements and stuff. But if you're designing for an agent or a bot, they don't really care about design. And in fact, design could really get in their way. And so like agent experience or like AX is kind of like the term that we're starting to move towards and like swerve around this whole like geo AEO argument.
Marketers just want leads, and SEO is tanking as people are going to ChatGPT to ask which tool should they use. Now, I found Profound because at Lovable, we're considering using you folks for visibility into our awareness and actions that we might take to create content to get more visibility and win more deals, in our case, in the VED coding space versus competitors. Tell us a little bit about Profound. You've been kind of a founding marketer there, and how, today we're going to talk about how Profound uses Profound, but just tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
Sure. Yeah. So Profound, we were founded last year, raised a seed round in August of last year, and then just recently announced our Series B from Sequoia. And so going from seed stage to Series B led Sequoia backed company in a year is just crazy. It seems normal in the age of AI these days, but it's still like the definition of hypergrowth, I think. What Profound does is we help brands like Ramp, Chime, MongoDB monitor, manage, and improve their AI visibility in platforms like ChatGPT. The foundation of Profound is these three different data buckets of prompts and responses that we're getting back from these models. We connect with your CDN to understand how AI bots are visiting your website, or in some cases, how they're not visiting your website because they're blocked by Cloudflare or something like that. We have the largest data set outside of the models themselves of real user conversations. We call this tool prompt volumes. And we've built the first tool to show marketers how many people are searching for things like credit cards or Taylor Swift inside of ChatGPT and other platforms as well. And so those three things combine like to the data foundation of Profound. And then now we're helping brands take action using all that data. How do you create content that LLMs love? How do you optimize existing content for LLMs as well?
Now, we used to optimize for words. SEO is like, what are the keywords we want to win? What are the categories? But now we're optimizing for prompts, which are much longer and more complicated. You said one of the number one first things you have to do is figure out which prompts you're optimizing for to figure out if you're getting awareness. Talk us a little bit through the prompt landscape and how it's different from the SEO landscape.
Prompts are long. The average prompt is more than 20 words compared to your average search in Google is like 3, 4, or 5 words. And so people are adding way more context, way more nuance to their question that they're asking ChatGPT. And so you kind of have to reframe this thing in your head of moving from keywords to these long form prompts. And so the first thing we help all of our new customers do at Profound is set up and build their own prompts. Question on your lead form somewhere, if you're in B2B SaaS or something like that. For anyone who answered ChatGPT or LLMs, if that's an option in your how did you hear about us? If it's not, you should add it or make an open text field, which is my preference. Ask those people, hey, what prompt did you use? How did you ask ChatGPT? See if they can just like go back in their history, copy and paste it over to you to understand like truly how is a prospective customer asking these platforms, and then ultimately finding your business. The second approach here is the manual internal marketing approach of make a quick Google form and literally hassle everyone at your company to go fill it out, pretend like they're a customer or a prospect at your company and ask them, how would you ask ChatGPT, a question that would ultimately help them find our business? Like, what's the problem you have? How would you write it out? Try and get like 10, 20, 30 of those responses. And then from there, you'll notice common themes and be able to build out different prompts as well. And so this really is like not even step one. Step 0 is figuring out what prompts to track, because then everything else comes out of the prompts you track.
And next, then you are looking at who's actually coming to your website. Is that what happens next to try to figure out which bots are already crawling your website of LLMs?
For sure. Once you have your prompts, like regardless of if you use a tool like Profound or not, I think the next best thing to do is just start tracking your visibility. And so it could be as simple as taking those prompts we defined, plug them into ChatGPT, run it every day, put this into a spreadsheet where you track like the prompt you use, the platform, the response, what competitors were mentioned, and just see how often your brand is mentioned in the response or not, and calculate the most basic of metrics of visibility score. At Profound, of course, we help people do this for you. We do it automatically, but it's like you can't truly, improve a metric that you don't have visibility into. And so understanding, oh, we're visible in every 2 out of 10 prompts or every 9 out of 10 prompts. What does that look like now? And you kind of build the foundation, because then if you're visible 20% of the time, then you should go on offense and say, hey, I need to go make new content, optimize existing content. I'm basically invisible. I can finally convince my boss to let me publish listicles and comparative content, which is like the biggest roadblock we see of why people aren't super visible in AI search right now. And on the flip side, if you're visible in 9 out of 10 responses, then maybe it's more of a defensive strategy of, look, here are the pages that are cited a ton in AI search. How do we protect them? How do we not screw this up, basically? And so once you have that initial baseline visibility, you kind of can start to coalesce a strategy around that.
One of the things your CEO had mentioned in a sales call that I saw was that total traffic doesn't actually matter as much for references in the LLMs as it did for SEO. We were always trying to get on the most trafficked pages, but now if some pages have more authority, are set up in more of a Q&A format, or if they do head-to-head comparisons that provide the content that the LLM is looking for, those can index higher in the answers, even if they aren't the highest traffic sites.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need a ton of existing traffic to a page or a website or even a domain for it to be cited very often in AI search. One of the most interesting examples we see a lot in our data is that these answer engines will pull a Reddit thread from like 2 years ago. And like that is the one that they cite the most. It's like super dated Reddit thread that maybe you can't even find if you Google it anymore. But for some reason, ChatGPT is really like latched onto this. And like it really comes down to these models. They just have different ranking factors and priorities than what worked in Google. And there's definitely some overlap there, but you have Google, who's been around for 20 plus years and has a very sophisticated, lots of history behind how they crawl the web and their interaction with public facing websites. Then you have things like ChatGPT and their crawlers, which were, very primarily designed in the beginning by PhDs basically. And two kind of fundamental differences and two different ranking factors and how all of these different platforms look at content. You really have to be measuring, okay, for this prompt or this set of prompts, what is ChatGPT citing? How is that different than what we're used to in Google? And throw out a bunch of your old assumptions. It does start with the pure basics of keywords, not a thing to focus on. Prompt and long form questions is definitely a much better framing of how to think about this.
The sites that seem to index higher are different than what we used to have. I found you guys originally from an image that you had shared about ChatGPT's index, which showed that Wikipedia answers feed, more than 45% of ChatGPT answers, followed by Reddit, and then some that we would expect, Forbes or G2 or TechRadar, sites that have comparisons to product, sites that have open crawling, right? Forbes is indexing much better because it's written both in a Q&A format, but also because it's not behind a paywall like some of the other sites. But I don't think the marketers were optimizing for Wikipedia or Reddit in the past, certainly not in the way that they are now. What other surprises have you seen, in the kind of sites that you have to optimize for now?
Yeah, the amount of questions I get from people internally at Profound is like, how do we make a Wikipedia page? All of our customers are asking us, how do we make a Wikipedia page? Which honestly is hard. Most companies can't. You need a lot of non-fundraising tier one press mentions to go make a Wikipedia page. And so early stage startups, most, early stage companies like pre-series B just have a hard time getting a Wikipedia page to stick. Outside of that, Reddit, like we see a lot of sites that are most commonly cited in ChatGPT, and that data set you're referencing was based on, I think, like 30 or 50 million prompts that we had run. We've since run a lot more since then, and so we're looking to do an updated version of that piece of research.
Ooh, I'd love to see it, because the other reason I was intrigued to get more information for the companies that I advise from Profound is because I feel like it also probably changes a lot for different types of industries. So I know that like NerdWallet showed up pretty high. And for B2B, that's like not really as much of a core selling site for some B2B products as it might be to B2C. So I think those splits of B2B and B2C would be helpful. But of course, that's also why people must subscribe to just see specific to their industry what sites are indexing and where do they need to play bigger.
Exactly. What we see a lot too is that affiliate sites can have a really outsized influence. We have a whole configuration within Profound that looks at the online mattress space, which is very heavily affiliate based. And if you're an online mattress brand and you're integrated in like Wirecutter and all these other kind of like mattress affiliate based websites, if you're listed there, you're very visible in ChatGPT. And if you're not listed there for whatever reason, like you're not doing affiliates or it's too expensive or whatever, you're quite literally invisible in ChatGPT. And so, Safa or Casper or Purple, like they don't really care about Wikipedia. Reddit shows up a little bit, but for them, it's like, oh, are you in Wirecutter or not? Are you in these other top affiliate sites that also happen to rank highly on Google or not? Because they become kind of like the arbiter of if you're visible in AI search. And so there's a very interesting overlap with the affiliate space and how those articles, which are typically listicles, which we know LLMs like, how that kind of plays into the whole ecosystem. And so it is very industry dependent.
It's interesting because you're actually an expert in affiliate sites. Didn't you run your own private affiliate site kind of before Profound?
There was the Notion template stuff where a long time ago, Notion had pretty terrible SEO. And if you Googled free Notion templates, I was number one. Notion was maybe number two, maybe number three. And I just kind of crushed that whole category before they really caught up. And I built my own listicles filled with affiliate links and was quite successful at doing that. I was also a great affiliate for Superhuman, the email client too. I've talked to people who work there. It's funny, I've talked to Gaurav a bunch now afterwards. And when you used to refer someone to Superhuman, they would send you an email. And so I hopped on the phone with him, who's one of the co-founders, head of growth at Superhuman. And I just scrolled through my inbox where there's like hundreds, maybe 1,000 different referrals from Superhuman. And so I did have an affiliate phase that is now not currently active, but that site can be really beneficial if you own an external property, an external website, besides the one that the company you work at. That gives you another surface to play in of like, oh, how do I use this other property to increase visibility or experiment somewhere or write some content that my CEO won't let me post on the corporate website I can get away with on my personal website. And so it's just like always been a really nice back pocket asset for me to use when I need to.
1Password had a lot of success with affiliate sites too. So coming onto the content, you guys provide a lot of visibility into, are you getting awareness? What types of terms and phrases and long form sentences do you want to be optimized for? What is already feeding those? And then there's the kind of like, holy moly, what do we do with it now? How do we create new content? So talk to us a little bit. You've mentioned a couple things, these like Q&As, listicles, proprietary content, but talk to us a little bit about how you can create your own content that does rank and creates authority. Is that creating that on property on your site, or is that really creating that off property on someone else's site?
Yeah, I think the one thing to anchor on here is velocity. The velocity of content, of new content, of optimizing old content. Probably the biggest misconception I hear from folks, and I take a lot of customer demo calls at Profound as well. The biggest misconception is that LLMs, only use data from their training runs, which are really outdated. And so how can I go back in time and publish content 2 years ago so ChatGPT picks it up when they release GPT 4.0 or GPT 5? The reason that's wrong now is because LLMs all do web search. And so if you ask ChatGPT a question, more than often it will say, hey, let me go search the web and find some answers for you. And we see that happen a lot more with high consideration, bottom of the funnel content. If you ask ChatGPT, what is a CRM, doesn't really need to go search the web to answer what that is. Starting from that point, knowing that ChatGPT does go search the web, we found it can pick up new articles, new content within 2 days. I have personally published content and tracked how quickly ChatGPT picked it up, not even on the Profound site, on different websites. And 2 days is how quickly it has found it and picked it up. And so I think that kind of gives you a new mental model to go through. And in the old Google days, things took forever. You couldn't guarantee a timeline. It could be weeks, it could be months before Google picks it up. And you crack the first top 20 results maybe. And so speed, velocity, I think is really the one thing to anchor on. Comparison pages are by far the best place to start if you're not doing comparison of best X, best password managers, those kind of articles, or 1Password versus LastPass versus Dashlane or whatever. Those are all great pieces of content for you to make. One, just in general, of that's good, helpful content. Two, we know LLMs like that kind of content a lot. And then both at Profound and before this, I was consulting a lot with other B2B SaaS companies. And there's a big pushback when you go to a CEO and you say, hey, I want to write a listicle, ranking, the best geo providers. And of course, you put Profound number one. But most CEOs push back when you start wanting to name other competitors and give them airspace on your own website. The reality is your customer knows a fair amount of your market already. They can go do competitive research. They can go to G2. They can see all these things already. And so you're not really bringing any new education to prospects and showing them alternatives that they're not already aware of. The benefit of doing this is that you get to control the narrative of not only when prospects land on your site and the humans are reading your content, what is your POV of why you're better than this tool or whatever. But now in the world of agent experience, when you're not in control of the final message, it's like ChatGPT will take your content or not, maybe hallucinate a bit of it, and then give an answer back to the customer. If you don't have any comparative content of how you're different, what's your pricing like, is your support different, all the different indexes that you differ from your competitors. If you don't give that to ChatGPT, it will either make it up or it'll pull from your competitor pages, your competitors who have those pages themselves. And so it's kind of like a fundamental, you have to have the content to give it to these models. Otherwise, someone else will, and you will literally lose out. Those pieces are really kind of fundamental to how things go. There's one specific alternatives page that I can give you. We can put in the show notes or in the accompanying content afterwards. It's by Postmark, which is an email API service now. They do a really good, honest, truthful, accurate version of writing a blog post that's about a listicle alternatives to this other competitor of theirs, SendGrid. It's the best form of comparative content I've ever seen. And so that's to me the gold star of what to shoot for. And you can publish that on your site or on a third-party site as well.
And what do you think about this, your site versus a third-party site? You've personally seen some good strength publishing that content off property. Is it more authoritative off property than on property?
I do think it is more authoritative when it's off property. It's also way more scalable. When you publish something on your own site, you can really only write one version of that. And say you have a network of 5 to 10 websites, either you own, in my case, or you have partners that own them. Now, at Profound, we've partnered with a bunch of other brands, companies, agencies. And I go to them and I say, hey, I would love to publish a piece of content on your website. Here's what it is. I'll pay for it. I'll find a freelance writer. You get final editorial approval of the whole piece. You can really start to influence the AI answers a lot. And I think why people don't do this is that it's hard. it takes time. Publishing something on your website is easy. You write it, you click publish, it's easy, done, you move on to the next thing.
Right.
To build a strategy where you have like a network of partners where you can post on, that takes time, but is absolutely worth doing. And we've seen really good results with that at Profound.
So tell me a little bit more then. You've got your terms, you've got your sites, you're building your content, and now you're optimizing it on an ongoing basis. You are seeing 10% of your traffic from the LLM, I think, and I think you said Vercel's CEO had mentioned he's seeing 15%. I know I've been talking to a number of CEOs. I run a AI club for CMOs, and among them, their traffic isn't substantial, but some of their conversion rates are much higher. If they're ranking well, then the people who arrive are already educated to buy. What are you guys seeing in terms of traffic, in terms of conversion rates? This is still nascent, but we know where it's going.
And just a quick correction, it's the reverse of those two stats. So we're seeing about 15% of our leads come from ChatGPT. And the Vercel stat is this, the CEO, co-founder of Vercel is tweeted that he's seeing about 10% of their leads, their new signups coming from ChatGPT. And so one, for us, that really anchors on the how did you hear about us question, which is how I am able to tell exactly that 15% number is real. And so like when I kind of like step back and look at that, there's two things that kind of like contribute to it. Is one, if I'm a CMO, like, and I am looking at traffic from ChatGPT and the numbers, like I would really consider how you're collecting that data, because we're finding that the most common user journey involving LLMs, answer engines, whatever, is people are starting with ChatGPT, they'll ask it questions, and then from there, the click-throughs from ChatGPT are not super high, but instead people will go and Google your brand or Google something, because that whole process is so deeply ingrained in everyone's behavior of how they use a computer, or they will go directly to your website, which again is why I anchor so much on having something like a how did you hear about us, some kind of self-reported attribution, and a way to understand if people are finding you in ChatGPT.
So you're seeing a lot of that show up in branded content, basically. You're like, if you win in the LLM, you might see a direct referral, or you might just see branded content coming through.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a study from Siege Media that about being visible in some kind of AI result is increasing branded search traffic about 10 to 15%, depending if you're B2C, which is about 10%, B2B is like 15 to 17% increase in total branded search traffic, because that's how people are discovering your brand. It starts in ChatGPT. It's like a true first touch attribution model there. We've run our own research. We've recently surveyed about 2,000 people and have new research coming out about this. And so I think you're the first person I'm verbally telling this research to before it gets formally published. But we found that about 80% of shoppers who have used an answer engine for a purchase in the last 7 days rely on it for about half of their decision making. And so they're just using these tools a lot to begin their search, find a bunch of options, and then, old legacy behavior kicks in. You go direct, you Google it, all the branded stuff, it really comes through.
The thing that interests me about using the LLMs is how authoritative their answers seem. There's no like maybe or here are two pieces of information, weigh it yourself. I mean, I think Perplexity does a better job at that, certainly, than Claude and Anthropic and Gemini. But when they give you an answer, it seems like that's the answer. And so I think that's a part of the benefit. Certainly, sometimes they're pulling from a G2 or a Trust Radius, and that is kind of an answer. But I think also, to your point, if you create the best content, you're creating a more authoritative answer than you might have been able to provide in the past when people were discerning between multiple sites.
For sure. And yeah, it's a bit of a slippery slope too. Sometimes ChatGPT can gaslight you and tell you the wrong thing. And then you're like, wait, that's wrong. It's like, oh, you're right. Yeah. It's like it can be very agreeable sometimes too. And so yeah, I think people are learning how to use that the same way we've like learned how to use Google and taught ourselves like, oh, I need to Google credit card, not like, what's the best credit card for me as a 21-year-old guy who's graduated college, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was like a new like learning that we kind of all have to go through to like really get the most out of these tools.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me then, share a story, some customer stories about where Profound is making a measurable difference.
Yeah, we have 5 case studies on the website, primarily our best source of customer truth. The one that we talk about the most is Ramp. Ramp increased their AI visibility about 7x in a key category. And really, if you go through all of these, the common theme is how quickly they've seen results. And so we have one, with a company called AirBy, where they tripled their their brand visibility in a week. We have another with a company called Statsig, who hilariously just got acquired by OpenAI yesterday. How they really shifted their AI visibility within a week too. I think they went from about 22% visibility to like 50% visibility. And then that's just kind of like the start of to scratch the surface of increasing visibility is a great first place, but then how much is that actually driving business results too? And that's one where that how'd you hear about us self-reported field comes into play, because I see that all the time of we have that at Profound. People will literally paste in the exact title of a partner article that we've written into the how did you hear about us field. And so we can kind of start to tie those things together. But two, it's really about once your visibility has increased, how do you go and create more content? How do you optimize existing content? And that's where our new actions and workflows product has really helped. But the best case study we helped someone 5x their branded traffic by tapping into AI search behavior. And so there's only more of these that will come. These are just like the ones that we can publicly talk about.
Yeah. And it's funny because you're providing this visibility into what can you do, and you have this budding actions engine. But I think one of the challenges for CMOs right now is whether or not they have the people on their team to really activate that and create all of that content. So I know I've been working overtime with a company called GrowthX as well, that does a lot of the content creation alongside your visibility. So I know they're at Ramp, and there's kind of this moment in time for CMOs where they're trying to figure out like, how fast can I train up my own team? And like, how do I get AI ready people who can like very quickly execute and quadruple my content and make sure it's AEO, GEO content. So it's a tricky challenge. What industries do you see leaning in fastest and hardest? You have these customer examples, but you're seeing more than you can share externally.
Yeah. I mean, the big one is finance, fintech. We work with a ton of finance companies. We work with US Bank as well. So like Ramp, Mercury, Row, US Bank, Brex. There's a bunch of those in there that work with us that we see a lot of success with. B2B SaaS company as well. Works really well. And then where this is going, and we saw this when ChatGPT announced their shopping feature, which I think will only kind of start to improve more over time, is that we see a lot of e-commerce and D2C brands also coming to us and saying, hey, we think this whole shopping experience is really shifting away from Google towards a place like ChatGPT. You can now click through directly from ChatGPT when it recommends specific products. It'll show kind of like a similar shopping experience to Google Shopping, of like an image of the product, the price, a link to it, the title, reviews, all of that stuff. And so we're seeing a lot of growth in that area as well. And we think, again, that will kind of only increase from here. So those three categories is kind of where we see a lot of growth. But we've had a ton of random customers who also use us too. And that's kind of the fun part of having a like pretty horizontal marketing platform to offer.
It really seems like maybe newer industries where there's more adoption in their customer base of LLMs certainly have so much urgency. B2B tech, everyone is using LLMs every day, whereas maybe, I don't know, manufacturing or transportation buyers, might be indexing lower. So they have a little bit more time, but it certainly feels urgent. Where do you think things are going to go on the advertising front?
This is my personal opinion. I think there will be ads in ChatGPT. There are ads in Perplexity right now, although the head of ads at Perplexity, I think his name is Taz Patel, just recently left Perplexity as of last week. I believe it happened right before the Labor Day weekend. So I think the future of ads in Perplexity is kind of like TBD. I saw a number that they had only sold $30,000 of advertising. It was quite unimpressive considering the scale of a company like Perplexity. I think for OpenAI, Sam Altman has said he really detests ads as a product. They have the subscription model for consumers and then, enterprise model for, larger companies. But I do think that as they get more pressure to approach profitability is probably the nice way to say it. I do think we'll see something there. Google has AI mode, which is their version of ChatGPT in Google search. And right now you can run ads in Google AI mode. There's a few like technical nuances. This is like my background is in paid ads. And so I know how this works a bit more intimately than other places, but Google is kind of gatekeeping how you can bid on keywords or prompts in AI mode behind only their most like AI forward ad products. Happy to like go into more detail there, but Google's already doing it. They just won their mostly won their like antitrust case with the government. They get to keep access to Chrome, all this stuff. And so as weird as this says, like I would not count Google out in the battle for the future of how consumers search on the internet.
And it's certainly an existential threat to them. If they don't win it, they are in a lot of trouble. This was so helpful. I think CMOs are trying to figure out how we replace traffic, how we get more conversions, how we win in the new world. And it seems like you're at the epicenter of something that's growing pretty quickly. So thank you for sharing your insights. And I think in the blog, we'll share some more resources that you've made available about how to get started and what's leading to successful content. So thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.